Welcome to Talkin Divorce with Donald P. Schweitzer and Lori McShane.
We're turning to the emotional side of separation with Holly Freeling, who practices psychotherapy, counseling, and high-performance coaching. And joining us is Ted Moreno, a certified hypnotherapist and high-performance coach and host of the podcast, Ted in Your Head. Okay, so now we're back for another great topic, which, you know, it just, to me, is just so relevant these days. Women quietly quitting their husbands without the husband's knowledge. So, Dawn, I'm going to throw it to you. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Holly, I'm going to tell you a story. When I was a brand new family law attorney, I worked with a guy that had been practicing for 30 years. And I was handling a case where this divorce just didn't seem to make sense. Why are these people divorcing? And I think a lot of times new family law attorneys think of that. And he said, write that question on a piece of paper, which I did. He said, now give it to me. And he gave it to me and he crumbled it up and he threw it in the garbage can. He says, you'll never know. Well, today we're going to know about one reason people go through a divorce. And it's going to answer a lot of questions. And quite frankly, it's going to help me understand a lot of the patterns that I see. Because I do see people engaging in the behavior that I think we're going to talk about. Unfortunately, we've got Holly Freeling with us again,
Yes.
who's so wonderful at explaining these things. And we've got Ted Moreno. And he could get into the mind of people, and he speaks to a lot of folks going through these things. And I think that we're all going to learn, from each other, and our audience is going to learn what happens when people are quietly divorcing. I guess that's what we're going to start off with, right?
Yeah, I absolutely, because I feel these days with technology, it's so easy just to kind of go dive into your own world and just kind of really escape from reality, right? So, Holly, what have you seen with clients? Have you seen this happen?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I think the first part of the frame is to understand there's different types. So the easiest ones to understand are burnout. Sometimes both people are just simply burned out. There's too much going on. Both people are burned out, so they start to kind of check out of the marriage. Mm-hmm. You have a roommate, not a teammate, kind of thing. There's not a lot of conflict. You don't see a lot of fighting, but they're really burned out. Then you have another type, which is someone who has mental challenges. So maybe they're depressed, or they're anxious, or they have trauma issues, or they have addictions, and they just don't have the coping skills, they don't have the ability, they don't have the tools to manage a relationship well. And a lot of people don't know good relationship skills. There's a lot there. But the other two is there's the avoidant, withdrawn person. And they come into the relationship kind of leery of emotional conflict. So in the beginning, in the honeymoon phase, they seem lovely. Mm-hmm. But when things get real, they start to back up. They start to withdraw. They don't want to hear it. They don't want the drama, all that kind of stuff. We all know this type of person, right? They're sort of not engaged.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we have the resigned, over-functioning person, or overgiver, that is compensating for the withdrawn person. So they think, if I don't get it done, it's not getting done. So they are doing the lion's share of the housework, of the childcare, of the doctor's appointments, of carting kids around and all of that, while the other person is sort of withdrawing. Now this is a late stage divorce situation. It takes a long time. It's a long, slow build of resentment that happens over time. And the more resentful, let's say, the woman gets in this case, I've seen it the opposite way, of course, too, but the more resentful she gets, the more he withdraws. And then the more angry she gets, so the more resentful she gets. I'm doing everything here. And then the more he starts to withdraw. So you can see that the cycles feed on themselves over time, and then they just get entrenched in the pattern. So sometimes, surprisingly, kind of what you were saying, that the husband, let's say he's the withdrawer in this situation, is surprised, because it's often the overgiver who files.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's about 70% of all divorce cases in California are filed by the women.
Yes.
You know that, Ted? Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the patterns that I've seen. Uh-huh. And it seems like a lot of the times that, and I think maybe you and I have talked about this before, is that it's not a slow decision on the part of the woman who files. And I'm kind of connecting that to what you're talking about now. Am I right?
Yes, you're absolutely right. Also because it's not like the relationship in this scenario is terrible, right? The fighting decreases actually because the hope has gone away. So it's right up, exactly, you're exactly right.
So, Ted, can we save the marriage?
Can we save the marriage?
Right.
Well, that depends. Typically, by the time somebody comes to me, the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse have been camped out for some time, right? What was it? Criticism, contempt, defensiveness, and stonewalling, right? So by the time someone comes to me, they're asking me one of 2 things. I don't want to get divorced, but I don't like this person I'm living with. Help me just cope till I can figure something else out, or help me make the decision to leave the marriage because I'm done with it, okay? And so what has led up to that is an ongoing conversation that was never communicated with anybody. And I might be the first person that they say, this is what's going on with me, and you're the only one that knows. Right. So by that point, it's very difficult to save a marriage.
Right, and so you're helping people formulate their thinking process, it sounds like.
That's part of it.
Getting them to feel comfortable with going forward with whatever direction they take.
Yes.
Okay, how do you help them do that?
First thing is to get them out of overwhelm. So many options, so many people telling them different things, you know, so many shoulds, coulds, you know, just all these conversations. So once I give them an opportunity to vent and talk about what's on their mind, then we can start to plot out, well, what do you need to do? What do you want to do? You know, and truthfully have the client relate to me, you know, what do you really think is going on here? Is it really over? And most of the time it's, yeah, it's over. And now I need to figure out the next few steps. So getting them out of overwhelm, helping them to kind of put some time and effort into their own self-care, which kind of goes out the window in these type of situations. And then finding a team member, finding a good attorney, a good friend that they can communicate with. So finding some team members to help them through this period of their life.
That's good. It sounds like you've got a really good method there. So Holly, in my practice, I do see that when, especially women, have decided that the divorce is the way they're going to go, they're completely sure about it. There's not a lot of hesitation when they do that. Opposed to some of the men, more of the men that I see are, what's going on, right? I just can't believe this is happening, you know, and stuff. And, you know, so there's no saving the marriage type of a thing. We know that it's going to go forward, but a lot of times what they'll do is they don't want to push the go button yet. They still want a little bit more time. Can you explain that for us?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So let's just take one scenario, because there are many, of course. I'm sure you see the same thing. But I think there is a multi-generational transmission process that is happening. So let's say there's an avoidant father who is withdrawn, the mother who is overcompensating, doing all these things, and the mother gets lonely, right? Of course she's lonely. She's in a marriage all by herself pretty much, or most of the time. So she starts to lean on the children to get emotional support, right? Mommy's little man, daddy's little girl, and they start to sort of enmesh with the children. So the child, let's say the boy in this case, starts to be like an emotional partner to the mother.
God, I've seen that so many times.
Uh-huh.
Now you're explaining it. Go ahead,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
And they feel smothered. They feel engulfed. They feel enmeshed. And so what do? They learn how to back up. That to be loved is to be used. That's Pia Melody's work, amazing. So they learn that not only is love a little dangerous or vulnerability is dangerous, but they also learn mom does everything. Mom does the laundry, she does the cooking, she does everything, right? So then they get into a marriage and they expect wife to do everything, because a smothered son tends to become an avoidant husband. And there you have it. So the cycle just repeats, because to them it seems normal. Mm-hmm. So they're surprised by the divorce. The wife is probably, in these scenarios, just wrung her hands, and considered and tried and nothing happens, and tried and nothing happens. Or they get lip service sometimes. The man will say, okay, we'll try, I'll be better, and then it doesn't happen. So over time, it's kind of the water that wears away the rock.
Very interesting. So you've heard it, we've all heard the expression of you can't change the spots of the leopard, right? So in your work, because you do hypnotherapy, do you actually change people during that process of who they are and how they think?
No, don't change who they are. I can help them change how they think and what they do. So, hypnotherapists are behaviorists, right? So what is your thinking that's creating the behavior that's no longer working for you, and what is the new behavior you want to implement, okay? So, and it's interesting what you said. I've heard so many women tell me, I feel like my husband is another child, right? And so part of the work that we have to do is, well, that's probably not going to change, okay? You can't expect him to all of a sudden not be the child that you've been married to for however many years. And that's the thinking that needs to change, having that expectation that something's going to change when it's not, and having a different response to that, which may be divorce, or it may be quietly leaving the marriage, in which people say, I just want to hang in there until I can get my finances together, or whatever, right? So, but again, a lot of it is just getting people to sink into their bodies and get out of their heads and just experience some peace and some calm and calming down that nervous system. That's a lot of what I do.
What about the old song, I beg your pardon, I never promised you a rose garden? I mean, do you ever talk to them about, hey, look, you signed up for this, and do you want to just stick with it because it might be cheaper to keep him, or anything like that? Do you help them make that decision, or it's not something you get involved with?
I don't help them make that decision, but I help them figure out the best decision to make, because there's a jumble of different expectations, and there's a jumble of different resentments and anger and all kinds of water under the bridge. So, extracting the different ideas and feelings and expectations, that could take some time till somebody gets to the point where they say, I think this is what I want to do. And that may be, go along to get along. Okay, and I've heard that so many times. Somebody comes in, they'll vent, complain. And, first question out of my mouth is, well, are you ready for a separation? Or are you ready for divorce? No. I don't want to do that. I don't have the energy for that. I don't have the money for that. I just want to.
Let's talk about that. A lot of times they don't have the money for that. Yeah. They're getting a divorce, and I see them like in their 60s. Yeah. And especially the woman, she's been a housewife, and there's not a lot of money that's going to go around after they divorce and stuff. So, that's a consideration they got to make.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. And they're just like, I just want to hang in there, avoid as much as I can, do as little as I need to do to make sure he's not upset, and hopefully he'll die, or marry somebody rich. Somebody will come into my life, So a lot of unrealistic thinking.
Or Holly, can there be some passive-aggressive behavior in these type of relationships?
Oh. Why, yes, Doug.
Can you tell us about that? 'Cause that's what I would think would happen. It's like, I don't really want to be here, and I'm tired of you watching, that conservative talk show over there, and I'm going to be, making comments and, things like that. Do you see that part of the phenomenon here?
Yes, absolutely. And I think, one of the things we do is we want to unravel the pain cycle, the negativity cycle. So you do this, and then this person does this, and so on and so forth. But the thing a lot of people miss is the positivity cycle.
I think it's so easier to focus on the negative
Yes.
rather than the positive. That's
And
just,
especially if you've been married for a while.
and you're just in this constant, same cycle, and it's just on repeat, and how do you find your voice, going on being in repeat every day?
Or the installation of hope when you feel like you've tried and tried, but to really sit and have heart-to-heart conversations, because sometimes the withdrawn partner, when they know you're seriously going to leave, you see it, that's the point where the wife is done, and the husband is saying, whoa. Mm-hmm. But if you had started earlier, and okay, what really makes you happy and fulfilled, and what do you need from me, and all of that, you can start the positivity cycle, but you have to do it earlier.
I don't even know what the positivity cycle is, so thank you for bringing that up. Tell me about that. What is it?
You were asking her or
with me?
Somebody help me here.
I could just go based on my experience. It's easier. For me, it's best to be motivated to have positive thinking, positive affirmations that I've been starting to incorporate in my daily habits, because I feel that brings me along through the day and it gives me hope.
Yeah.
And all it gives me hope, and I'm going in the right direction.
Yeah.
Rather than the negative, then I feel becomes overwhelming. I get super tense. My body doesn't like it. My body goes like all over the place, and I'm just carrying around like this weight. Yeah. And so I personally don't like to go there. So I want to get rid of the negativity and try to more focus on the positive, because that ultimately is what I feel any person in a relationship is striving for, to find their own guidance, spiritual guidance inside, I think.
Yeah. So Ted, do you help people with their positivity?
Yeah, and that's such an important point, because I remember one particular case where a woman came in and she was venting and venting and venting and venting, and I said, hold on a second. Is he abusive to you? No. Does he treat you well? Is he kind? Yeah, he's kind. Is he good to the kids? Yeah.
Sounds like a good guy.
Good provider? Yeah. I just don't like him.
Oh.
I don't like that he does this. I don't like that he does that. But okay, got it. But by all accounts, this is not an abusive, nasty, mean person. Well, I guess you're right. So helping to get a different perspective of the situation, again, we have these conversations that gain more and more energy, and we're just running them in our heads. And to give somebody a different perspective, or to help them see the other side of the coin, I think is important in helping people not only to let go of some of that resentment, but maybe to make a more informed decision about how to move forward.
That's excellent. So, we're talking about, the other side, and stuff. Holly, I just think that a lot of people aren't meant to be living together for 60 years, okay? The marriage, and I'm sorry, I'm a divorce attorney and I'm not trying to sell divorce here, but it seems that being together for an entire lifetime takes two very committed, special people that make a lot of sacrifices, that are willing to overlook themselves for the bigger picture and stuff. Does that play into either one of your thoughts? As you're sitting across the table with somebody and you're giving them therapy, you might be thinking, well, this might be this person, or this might be the couple that it's never going to make it.
Yes, it's kind of sad when you see it. I think part of it is the fact that a really great couple, they get out of the power struggle, which is very rare. So if you think about three basic phases, you've got honeymoon phase, which everyone goes through. It's super delicious and amazing. But then you go into power struggle, and most couples never leave power struggle. Co-creation is really where you want to be. And the idea is, it's not, you're your own person, the other person is their own person, but there's a third entity, which is the we. And this is so precious. And if you meet the right person who's also willing to do it, because as I always say, it takes two to make it work, it only takes one to ruin it. Sometimes both people ruin it, but it really only takes one person, and that person here is, it takes two to tango, it takes two to make it work. But if both people are focused on the we, there is no more power struggle. It's us as a team moving through life. But there are some people who are never going to do it. They're just not. And so you have to decide, and that's where quiet quitting comes in sometimes. I don't want to leave because the children.
Or the house.
Yes.
Where am I going to go? A lot of it is the fear of the unknown. So a lot of people feel maybe stuck, and it's easier for them just to mentally check out, and just to go on day by day and just kind of just keep it in motion.
Yeah, or you love your in-laws, right? Or your child, and all the transitions you're going to have to go through. It takes a lot of bravery to leave. It takes a lot. But there are some people that really aren't going to, they're just not going to give enough for the we to happen.
Interesting. So, the process of figuring all this out, we've already established that it takes a long time. How long do you think it normally takes for a person who's starting that phase of quietly quitting to the point where they actually quit?
it's a little shocking, but what we know is that people come to therapy about 7 years past the time when they should have started.
Wow.
Oh, wow.
So most of the time people have been a bit miserable for a long time, and now the patterns are just so entrenched. Well, I'm not giving up that, or let me just tell you about, you probably hear this, well, let me just tell you how this other person hurt me. So you can stay in that, and that's not going to produce happiness.
Not at all. In fact, is it true that sometimes people go and see professionals like yourself just to get validation?
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely. And it's a slow burn of repeating the same conversation, having the same complaints, but many times not communicating them, not willing to do something about them. And yes, people come just to vent, just to have somebody listen to them, and then go back and go about their business. What's interesting, back to the point that you made, traditional marriages, people that have been married for 50, 60, 70 years, the power struggle is non-existent, and it's all about the we, which I find very interesting, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people come to me with, normal marital challenges, but the idea of divorce is simply, oh, no, we would never do that, no, we made a vow to stay together for life, and yes, he's difficult to live with, but this is what we do. So there's that whole nother side that keeps people together, where the we is the most important thing, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, my wants and needs, they're important, but it's more important that we stay together. And you hear that occasionally with people that are maybe from a more traditional culture or rooted in a traditional type of religion or something like that.
I've seen in my practice some interesting cases that I think both of you could maybe comment on, and these are the elderly, the gray divorces, people that have been together for 40, 50 years. And one case, somebody recently said, are there any funny stories about why somebody filed for divorce? And I couldn't think of anything that's funny about any of the stuff that I do. But something that's interesting is there's one couple, they've been together for, I don't know, it was like 40, 50 years, and he's like, I want to sell our house and go buy a place by the beach. And she's like, we're not going to do that because we're not going to be moved away from the kids. I'm comfortable here. This is my community. Yeah, but I really want to go to the beach. You do that, we're getting a divorce. And boom, they were divorced. And it was like just that one thing like that, And so, doesn't that kind of smack in the face of somebody that's thinking about we, at that point? They're still kind of thinking about themselves, right?
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That not everybody that's been together for long come to that place where they're thinking about we, right?
Oh, absolutely. Some people, just because you stay together doesn't mean it's a successful marriage. You can stay together and it can be quite unhappy.
Yeah. One of the things I found interesting also, Ted and Holly, is when during consultations, it comes up, are you still intimate? Oh, no, we haven't been intimate for 10 years. Okay. Where are the sleeping arrangements? Oh, we've slept in separate bedrooms for 10 years. And I hear that, I'm thinking, oh, that one's definitely over with. I mean, there are ships passing in the middle of the night. And it seems like that would be part of this phenomenon you're talking about is
Roommates.
It's a trend.
Okay.
It's even a trend where houses are built with 2 master bedrooms.
Oh, boy.
Yes.
Wow.
That is
So
definitely
you have
a
the
trend.
east wing and the west wing. You stay over there and I'll stay over here. But
Sometimes
don't
you
bring
get
your
the
other
better
party
side
in
of-
the house.
Sometimes you get the better side of the other person, maybe. It's like, hey, you're being kind of grouchy. I'm going to go to my man cave or something.
Yeah.
Or snoring.
There you go.
Snoring
I hear
is a
that.
big reason, you're right.
Now, can that be a cause of the beginning of the quiet divorce? Because I think sometimes just separating themselves, they get kind of used to being away from each other. No?
What do they call it? Bed divorce or bedroom divorce, sleep divorce, something like
Yeah.
that. And once you're not in that energetic space of your partner, things start slowly dissolving.
What about, Holly, taking vacations separately?
I've heard this. Some people believe in it. Some people say, I need a little bit of time to go do whatever. Or maybe your partner wants to climb Mount Everest and you really do not. But you can stay at the lodge and drink cocoa and have a nice time.
That's me. Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So I think that this has been fascinating. I mean, you've really identified something that I see every day, and you've kind of added some science or some theories to this thing that a lot of our viewers are going to think beneficial. What do you think?
I have to agree. This is a really like a concept that's been around, but now it's kind of becoming like more regular on a daily basis. It's becoming more and more common, because a lot of people don't want to, go their separate ways. It's just easier for them just to quit it. What would you, final thought, what would you recommend somebody consciously do that they can, maybe prevent this from happening?
Or find themselves kind of slipping into it.
Or slipping into it,
How do they not keep going with it?
Yeah. You have to have some really deep conversations. And that's hard. A lot of times because people are afraid, right? I don't want to have to own my part. That can be really difficult. But really, you have to be emotionally intimate. Not just physically intimate, but emotionally intimate. And of course, physically intimate is a big deal too for people. You can only live so long, or some people really want to have an intimate life. So, But I do think you have to start earlier. You can't just let it go on and let it go on. And life is busy. There's so many things to do when we're distracted all the time. So you need to make it a priority. It is one of the greatest predictors of your happiness, who you choose to be with and how well you do your relationship.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, this has been fantastic. Ted, Holly, thank you very much. And please come again.
Thank you, Donna.
Will do.
Yeah, of course. People often continue to post on social media during a divorce without realizing it may be used in court. So, Dawn, how often do social media posts or digital communication end up becoming evidence in divorce cases?
A lot more, Lori, than what people imagine. Okay, I like to say that the playing field has really changed through the years. 20 years ago, when I was practicing law, social media had no presence in the courtroom. Now, almost every case has a tinge of it at the very least. Remember the old saying, everything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law?
Yes.
Well, guess what? Anything that you put in social media can and will be used against you. How about the woman that wants to go down to TJ and have a great weekend of drinking and getting drunk and falling on the floor, and there's a question about her sobriety and her ability to care for her children, but she posted on the social media thinking that her friends would like that. Well, guess what? That ex-husband's going to like that too, because he's going to attach that to a declaration, right? There's other scenarios, where people are bragging about how much they own, or the fancy cars that they drive, and they claim they can't pay support.
Yeah.
Right? Or how about the people that claim that they're in Southern California with the kids when social media shows them in Walt Disney World in Florida at a time when they're not supposed to be there, right? Or didn't give notice to the other side. So it's a real evidentiary thing, and any good family law attorney is going to be looking at that social media with their clients to try to see if there's any evidence there that they could use in court.
If this conversation resonated with you, you can watch more episodes of our expert discussions on our YouTube channel at Talkin Divorce. And until next time, bye.